What's up guys, Kiwa here. Over the next few days I'm going to be doing an install on the HPA Intake Manifold that I purchased. It's going to be more or less pictures, just maybe a few video clips. I've never done it before, so things could go wrong. So I'll just be taking pictures and doing a slideshow of pictures. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start tearing shit apart, and then we'll kind of get a little progress check as we go. So here we go. Alright, so one of the first things we're going to be doing is disconnecting the battery. There's a lot of electrical connectors that we're going to be unplugging. So just to alleviate the risk of something going wrong, just going to disconnect the battery so there's no electrical current going through any of the can of plugs. And that was a 10mm socket. Next thing is just grab an 8mm socket. Depending on if you have an aftermarket intake or not. Some of them have just like a hose clamp, and some are with just a regular garden hose clamp. So I got mine. It's an 8mm. It's going to disconnect or loosen up this clamp. And for the APR intake, you'll need a number 25 Torx bit. And there's 2 screws on the front end of this. Just need to loosen this up. Disconnect your mask connector. Might be easier to disconnect from the mask pipe itself. Just pull it up and out. You want to pop your cover off. It's just on some just little connectors, so it's not like screwed in or anything. There's just little ball connectors here. Pop it off, and that frees up all this extra room from the side for your fuel hoses and all the connectors and stuff up underneath here. Alright, so after you get the intake pipe off, the cover off, I went ahead and added some cut up shirts that I use as work rags, and so I just kind of stuffed one in this pipe so nothing gets jammed up in there. I went ahead and disconnected this multi-tap. Here, all you gotta do is just squeeze the sides, and it pops off real easy. Same thing with down here. And then I just kind of scooted it out of the way, put it up here. I went ahead and disconnected my throttle body pipe. It was down there at the bottom. There's a connector down there, so I went and disconnected that. Disconnected the map sensor, and then disconnected the coupler from the throttle body pipe to the actual throttle body. Took that out, just giving me a little bit more room. On the throttle body itself, there's 3 connectors. There's one here up on top. There's one here right in the middle. Then there's one here right at the bottom. Just going to disconnect those 3 connectors. Alright, so next I disconnected this cannon plug on the valve cover. It's just a small one here, easy. I also took this nut off this vacuum line, so it's just held on by a clamp. I disconnected this screw right here on the fuel line. This fuel line goes to your high pressure fuel pump. Underneath there's this fuel line right here, and what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to crack it really slow. There is going to be some fuel that drips out of there, but if you just crack it and let it drain real slow, I had an old shirt, I just jammed a shirt up in there so it didn't get everywhere. I also, just to the left of your throttle body, there is a bracket here that goes all the way down, and I just disconnected the screw that goes up into the manifold, so you're able to separate that whenever it comes time. Alright, so I'm going to very slowly crack this line. Very little fuel come out of here. All you want to do is just loosen this line so it's easier whenever you're loosening the line on the other side. It's down on the bottom end of the manifold, so it's easier to loosen that up and easier to wiggle out. Alright, so what I did after I disconnected this fuel line, I just went along the top and made sure everything was disconnected. I just disconnected this vacuum line. I couldn't tell whether or not it connected to the manifold or not, so I just went and disconnected it anyway. Obviously, I took the clamp off. Get a zoom out here. Oh yeah, I took the clamp off here. This is just like a 1/4 inch on top. You can just unscrew it. This comes up. This is kind of placed underneath it. I took off this clamp a little bit earlier. I didn't disconnect the other end of this fuel line, which is right there, just because I knew I can get to it at a later time. There are 2 tabs. See, there's a bracket here that comes up through there, so you got to pop that off, and then there's another one right there. So there's only 2 of those. Also, there's a bracket underneath here. As you can see, I took the throttle body off just because I was going to be swapping it to a new manifold anyway, so I figured I'd just take it off and make a little bit extra room. But this bracket, so this bracket here, sorry about that, this bracket goes all the way down and actually bolts down there. But there's a couple wire harnesses right in front of it, so if you don't disconnect this and you jerk too hard on this manifold when you're pulling it out, you can break the wires on one of those harnesses. It's that right there. See how it just sits right in front of it? You ain't kind of too hard and that's gonna pop out. You're either gonna be having to pay someone to do it or repinning a cannon plug, so be careful when you're doing that. It looks like there's 7 total bolts that mount the manifold into the head. There's one there, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then there's 2 on the bottom from what I can see. There's one right there and one right there. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen those bottom 2 up, and then I'm just going to go ahead and recheck everything and make sure everything's disconnected, and then we're going to go ahead and try to slowly snug this thing out of here. Alright, so I managed to rock this manifold out. There were a few things that I did prior to taking this off that helped out a lot. One being taking off the throttle body itself. 2 being the bracket that goes to the manifold, to the block, or to the, well, there's a little connector point down there. It looks like it's right on the block. Anyway, this bracket helped out quite a bit. And when I was pulling it off, it didn't seem like it was loose. It still seemed like there was a bolt, but I just kept rocking it back and forth, and it took a couple minutes to actually get it out. Once you have it out, I kind of just pulled it back really slowly to kind of tilt it up, and there's little trumpet looking things in the back that actually fit onto your fuel injectors, your whole rail. These right here and here, those were caught up inside the rail, so I had to be gentle with that. There's also a can plug right here you need to disconnect. I haven't disconnected it yet. And there's also one more on the side that I didn't disconnect just yet. But don't just go yoinking on this, you might snap some wires. So just be real careful when you're pulling it back. And then once you get it out, just pull it out just enough and kind of tilt it up, just to give you a little bit of view of underneath. Because that way you know exactly what you need to disconnect and whatnot. So. Alright, so I managed to get the manifold off. Slight issues, but nothing I can't fix. I took out the air diverters, cleaned them up. These fit up inside here, right here in these grooves. What they do is they just do exactly what they're supposed to. Divert air down into the valves. Make sure you put them in the right way. Well, if you put them in the wrong way, they kind of stick out, so you'll know. So you put them back in, they don't stick out. However, with this new HPA intake manifold, they don't have the notches for these little nipples here. On the stock manifold, they have these little spots here The pins just kind of sit in the guide pins. But on the HPA intake manifold, they don't have them. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and clip it and file it down. I got a little file set. Just clip it and file it down. But what I did, these were caked with carbon buildup, so I just went ahead and got some ZEP combustion cleaner and took a wire brush to them, scrubbed them off, and almost as good as new. Also, I got all the stuff taken off the stock manifold. Throttle body went on without issue. Some vacuum lines, fuel rail. I haven't bolted the fuel rail on because there's no points on here. The few points they have here are actually for the manifold, so whenever I go to bolt the manifold in, I'll have to bolt these on at the same time. So I'll clean the air diverters, and I'm going to go ahead and clean this switch. I kind of bagged it for no reason at all. So I will go ahead and clean this up, install it, and then we'll go ahead and get back to putting this in. Alright guys, I got everything put back together. I did start shooting some stuff of me putting everything back in, but I had to keep pulling it out and putting it back in, pulling it out and putting it back in, because I keep either forgetting something or something was getting in the way. The main thing that was getting in the way, you're not going to be able to see it from under here. That harness for the fuel injectors, because it was sitting loose, and when I was trying to like angle the manifold in, it was getting in the way. And this is the harness I'm talking about. But everything else actually went in pretty smooth because there's a lot more room underneath this thing. It really wasn't too difficult to get in, maybe just because I knew where everything needed to go. But one thing is that the engine cover will not fit on. It'll snap in the back, but it won't snap in the front because of this. Now it wouldn't be too hard to just kind of cut this down and make it fit, so I might have to do some fit checks and stuff like that. So, but for now I'm just gonna keep it off. I didn't connect the battery yet because I have not tried to start it. So I'm gonna actually set the camera up and have my wife hop inside and try to start it up while I check for leaks along the fuel rail, and obviously check for leaks around the fuel filter since I put it back on. So if all goes well, it should should start up. Keyword should start up with no issues. So let's go ahead and get everything hooked up, and we'll go ahead and give it a crank.
Can I sit on this? I'm not going to break it.
No, you're
sure. It's on
stands.
Huh?
It's on stands.
Are you sure? Safe?
Yeah.
Where's the key, Billy?
You want pocket?
You ready?
Yeah, good. Hold up. Alright, go ahead.
But our suspension lights on. EPC, battery, steering wheel, and engine light. You got
I
everything?
think that's gonna stay on until you start it.
Okay, you ready?
Hold on. Go. Stop.
So does it need a boost?
What?
Does it need like a boost? Because it's been out for a while?
I'm not sure. No, it's not dead.
Oh.
Okay, go ahead and try it again. Okay. Nice airflow sensor. And it was just those two?
Well, let's see what else we got.
Let's see.
I think that might be all for that section. ABS, HVAC. Yeah, everything else is not related.
What was the other ones?
There's a. Where'd it go? For the ABS control module.
Okay.
Just like every Volkswagen ever. Has
Yeah.
and that was it. And then I think there was one for the radio.
Okay, I ain't worried about that shit. Cool, so what I thought.